Have you ever looked into your dog's eyes and felt like they were reaching out to you from across a vast, invisible chasm, desperate to speak, but trapped in a profound and heavy silence? This is not just a poetic metaphor, but a literal biological reality. For over 15,000 years, dogs have walked alongside humanity, co-evolving and sharing our fires, our homes, and our lives. Yet, despite this ancient bond, the canine vocal tract never developed the anatomical features necessary for articulate speech. Natural selection did not grant them the ability to verbally communicate their needs, to point to a localized ache, or to whisper that they are feeling overwhelmed by the crushing weight of isolation. If speech had been possible within canine biological constraints, evolutionary biologists argue, it would have emerged rapidly, granting immense survival advantages in human environments. Instead, their entire physical form became a canvas for expression, an intricate and highly sensitive neurological dashboard that broadcasts their deepest emotional and physiological states. We often tell ourselves that providing food, shelter, and occasional affection is enough, assuming that if our dogs were truly suffering, they would cry out, whine, or limp to draw our attention. But the most heartbreaking truth of canine behavior is that they are biologically engineered to suffer quietly. When you understand the evolutionary pack survival instinct, you realize that for a wild canid, showing weakness, pain, or vulnerability is an absolute death sentence. To display injury in the wild is to invite predation, to lose access to resources, and to be left behind by the pack. This ancient, hardwired survival mechanism still courses through the veins of the modern domestic dog, sleeping peacefully on your living room rug. They mask their pain and swallow their anxiety because their neurobiology demands it. And that silence is not a sign of comfort. It is a meticulously crafted illusion of strength. We are going to embark on a deep scientific and profoundly emotional journey into the hidden vocabulary of your dog. We will decode the subtle shifts in their body language, the physiological reality of their loneliness, and the devastating quiet indicators of their hidden pain. To begin understanding this silent language, we must first look at the everyday ways your dog attempts to bridge the communication gap. The first incredibly common gesture occurs when you walk through the door and your dog stretches their front legs forward, lowering their chest to the ground while their rear end remains elevated. You are witnessing far more than a simple muscle stretch. This posture, commonly known as the play bow, is a complex neurobiological invitation. It is driven by a sudden surge of dopamine in the brain's reward center, signaling a high level of approach motivation and a deep desire to engage. A beautiful chemical bond with you. You are their primary attachment figure, and this physical bowing is their way of actively seeking positive social friction and neurochemical reinforcement. You can actively strengthen this bond by mirroring their energy, softening your tone, and engaging in the playful interaction they are biologically craving. The second everyday sign revolves around the tail, but communication here is not always so straightforward. Many owners operate under the dangerous and simplistic assumption that a wagging tail universally equals a happy dog. Veterinary neuroscience paints a much more nuanced picture, revealing the fascinating phenomenon of canine cerebral asymmetry. The speed, rigidity, and directional bias of the tail wag are direct windows into their brain activity. When a dog wags its tail predominantly to the right side, it indicates left hemisphere activation in the brain, which strongly correlates with positive, confident, and relaxed approach behaviors. However, if the tail is held stiffly and wags predominantly to the left, it is driven by the right hemisphere, signaling anxiety, uncertainty, and a sudden spike in sympathetic nervous system arousal. They are processing a potential threat or a deeply conflicting emotion, and assuming they are joyful in this moment can severely breach their trust and ignore their silent request for space. When you notice that stiff leftward wag, the kindest thing you can do is take a gentle step back, lower your energy, and offer them the quiet room they need to process their environment safely. This emotional radar extends upward to their ears, which represent our third vital sign of communication. A dog's ears are controlled by a complex network of muscles tied directly to their internal autonomic state, essentially acting as a visible barometer for their nervous system. When your dog presses their ears back gently against their head, but their facial muscles remain soft, their jaw is loose, and their body is fluid, you are receiving a deliberate and beautiful gesture of appeasement. They are demonstrating trust, respect, and a profound desire for a peaceful, loving interaction with you. You can honor this gentle request by offering a slow blink and a soft, lingering stroke along the base of their neck, validating their trust. But if those ears are pinned tightly to the skull, accompanied by a stiffened brow, a tightly closed mouth, and dilated pupils, a very different biological alarm is ringing. Their amygdala, which serves as the brain's threat detection center, has been fully activated. They are experiencing a sudden surge of fear or anticipating conflict, instinctively pulling their delicate sensory organs back to protect them from perceived harm, while trying to avoid a confrontation. In this terrifying moment, do not reach out to hover over them or offer frantic petting, as this can amplify their feeling of being trapped. Instead, simply sit down nearby, softly avert your gaze, and let your quiet, grounded presence slowly deactivate their internal alarm. You might also notice a fourth fascinating behavior, where your dog suddenly shakes their entire body vigorously, exactly as they would if they were wet, even when their fur is completely dry. This is not a random itch or a pointless habit. Science has finally revealed why they do this, and it is a profound somatic reset mechanism deeply rooted in their nervous system. When a dog experiences a sudden spike in stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol due to a tense encounter, an overwhelming environment, or even intense excitement, their nervous system becomes flooded with an uncomfortable amount of excess, invisible energy. That full-body shake is a brilliant biological strategy to manually discharge that trapped tension, quiet down their racing heart, and forcibly return their body to a state of peaceful balance. If they are shaking frequently in your home for no apparent reason, they are quietly telling you that their environment is keeping them in a constant state of low-grade chronic stress, and they are desperately trying to shed the physiological weight of it. You can help them by identifying what invisible stressors might be present, perhaps chaotic household noise or a lack of routine, and actively creating a quiet, dimly lit sanctuary for them to truly decompress. Sometimes this unspent energy manifests as our fifth sign, which looks like restless fidgeting or constant, exhausting pacing. When your dog cannot seem to settle, constantly shifting positions, turning in circles, or twisting near your feet, it is a clear physical manifestation of internal biological tension. They are seeking a pressure release from a mind that cannot find an off switch. Because you are their entire world and their primary source of security, they are effectively asking you to act as their regulatory anchor, hoping that your calm presence will help soothe their restless neurology. When they pace like this, do not just watch them from the couch. Gently guide them to their favorite resting spot, sit down right beside them, and place a warm, heavy hand steadily on their side to help physically ground their racing mind, letting them know that it is finally safe to rest. The sixth way your dog speaks to you involves how they physically move through the space around you, specifically the act of circling. If they are walking around you in a loose, relaxed manner with a soft gaze, it is a pure expression of joyful bonding and excitement simply to share your physical space. But if that pacing becomes tight, anxious, and repetitive, it is a completely different story. It signals an unmet emotional need, becoming a physical manifestation of an obsessive thought loop they cannot break on their own. They are using motion to cope with a flood of invisible nervous energy coursing through their bloodstream. When you see this tight, obsessive pacing, do not ignore it or yell at them to lie down. Instead, gently interrupt their pattern by cheerfully calling their name, offering a simple, familiar command like sit, and rewarding them with a calming chest rub to help pull their mind out of that stressful loop. Conversely, you must pay very close attention to spatial pressure, which brings us to our 7th sign. If you call your dog, and instead of approaching, they take a subtle, hesitant step backward, their ancient fight-or-flight mechanism has been triggered, and they are leaning heavily toward flight. This retreat is a primal reflex to something in the environment, a sudden movement, or a tone of voice that feels inherently unsafe, entirely overriding their conscious desire to please you. Forcing them to come closer in this state only compounds their fear, so you must soften your approach immediately. Crouch down to their level, turn your body slightly sideways to appear less intimidating, and let them close the distance on their own terms, proving to them that you are a safe harbor. You will also see this hypervigilance in sudden posture shifts, representing the 8th way they communicate. A dog that is lying comfortably but suddenly snaps into a rigid, alert stance has detected an invisible environmental anomaly. Their acute sensory pathways have flooded their brain with an alert signal, bracing their body for immediate action. Recognizing what triggers these sudden shifts allows you to map their hidden anxieties. When they snap to attention like this, you can validate their instinct by calmly looking in the direction they are staring, sighing softly, and telling them in a relaxed voice that everything is okay, effectively telling their ancient alarm system that you have taken over the watch. On the completely opposite end of the emotional spectrum, our 9th sign is one of the most beautiful displays of secure attachment you will ever witness. When your dog actively brings you a favorite toy, it is not merely a simple request to play fetch. From an evolutionary standpoint, they are offering you a highly prized personal resource. This breathtaking gesture triggers a shared rush of pure love and bonding chemicals in both of your brains, solidifying your family tie and demonstrating a profound level of emotional trust. Do not just blindly throw the toy across the room. Take a moment to accept their gift, hold it, look at them with genuine warmth, and thank them before initiating the game, honoring the profound trust they just placed in your hands. The 10th and final sign of their daily vocabulary rests entirely in their eyes, and it is perhaps the most powerful connection you can share. Deep, focused eye contact from a dog is a stunning biological mechanism. When they look softly into your eyes from across the room, they are engaging in a beautiful chemical embrace, a feedback loop of love that literally lowers their heart rate and deepens their devotion to you. When they actively seek your gaze, they are asking for connection in its purest form. All you need to do is look back, soften your facial expressions, and take a slow, deep breath, allowing your shared biology to weave you closer together. But as we transition from their everyday vocabulary to the deeper, heavier emotional currents, we must confront the devastating reality of canine loneliness. Dogs are fundamentally social creatures, hardwired by thousands of years of evolution for pack integration, and when they are deprived of that vital connection, their minds and bodies suffer immensely. The first subtle shift indicating your dog is drowning in isolation often looks like pure disobedience. They might start barking incessantly at the wall, dragging your shoes into the center of the room, tearing down curtains, or rummaging through the trash the very moment you sit down to work. This is not malicious or spiteful behavior. This is a dog starving for the joy of your attention. They are craving the chemical reward of your presence, and when the void of being ignored becomes too painful, they create their own chaotic job just to force an interaction. To a lonely dog, even the negative attention of being scolded provides a more stimulating response than the crushing, empty silence of isolation. If they cannot find comfort in your active presence, they will desperately seek out your ghost. When they act out like this, pause your frustration. Realize they are crying out for a connection, and carve out 10 minutes of absolute, undivided attention to remind them they are not invisible. This leads to the second heartbreaking sign of loneliness. You might notice your dog lying rigidly by the front door for hours on end, or the moment you pick up your keys, they rush to the entryway with hopeful, desperate eyes. Many people assume the dog just likes the cool floor, but science reveals something much deeper. They are actually seeking out the location where your unique scent, the invisible diary of your emotions, is the absolute strongest. They anchor themselves to the door because it is the literal boundary between their safe world and the terrifying unknown, sitting in a state of prolonged, anxious anticipation. If left unchecked, this endless waiting slowly erodes their emotional resilience and spikes their baseline stress levels. When you finally come home and find them waiting there, do not just rush past them. Drop your bags, kneel down to their level, and let them take a deep, long breath of your scent, gently reassuring their worried mind that their entire world has safely returned. This chronic anxiety inevitably gives birth to a flood of invisible stress known as autonomic displacement behaviors, which is the third indicator of a lonely mind. You might catch your dog yawning repeatedly when they are completely rested, or obsessively licking their lips when there is absolutely no food around. These actions are incredibly easy to DGK habits, but veterinary science tells us a much darker story. Displacement behaviors occur when a dog is trapped in a state of overwhelming environmental stress. Their nervous system is firing rapidly, flooding their bloodstream with toxic spikes of cortisol. In a desperate attempt to combat this internal chemical fire, the dog engages in re-GK physical actions. They yawn, GDK, and heart flow, or they lick their lips to artificially stimulate the release of calming endorphins. These are not signs of fatigue. They are the physical manifestations of a nervous system fighting to keep from drowning in its own anxiety. You can offer them immediate relief by speaking in a low, soothing whisper and gently massaging the base of their ears, helping to manually release those calming endorphins so they do not have to fight the panic all alone. When these silent coping mechanisms fail, the dog begins to shut down entirely, bringing us to the fourth devastating sign. If your dog, who once greeted you with joyous enthusiasm, now isolates themselves in a dark corner of the room and refuses to engage even when you call their name, you are witnessing the onset of systemic depression. The chronic stress of loneliness has caused the reward loop in their brain to literally fade away. The things that once brought them immense joy no longer trigger a positive chemical response in their mind. They isolate themselves because the pure emotional effort required to interact with the world has simply become too exhausting for their weary heart. Do not force them out of their safe space or overwhelm them with loud, cheerful demands. Instead, quietly sit near their sanctuary with a high-value treat. Read a book out loud in a soft voice, and let them decide when they are ready to step back into the light, proving that your love does not require them to perform. Alternatively, this deep-seated insecurity can manifest as profound separation anxiety, turning your dog into a Velcro shadow, which is the fifth sign. They stand up the second you stand up. They follow you into the kitchen. They wait outside the bathroom door, and they never take their eyes off your movements. While it feels like sweet devotion, it is actually a state of severe hypervigilance. They have lost their internal ability to self-regulate their emotions and are using your physical presence as their only biological anchor. The moment you break their line of sight, their world shatters, and their cortisol levels skyrocket, leaving them entirely unable to cope with the environment. To manage this terrifying lack of control, some dogs turn inward, finding a single point of focus to obsess over. This leads to the sixth sign: excessive and repetitive licking. You may notice your dog constantly licking a specific paw, their belly, or a patch of fur, sometimes until the skin is red, raw, and bleeding. This is a destructive, self-soothing behavior. The physical act of grooming provides a fleeting, microscopic pulse of endorphins, offering temporary relief from their emotional agony. It becomes a neurological addiction, a repetitive cycle where they damage their own physical tissue just to feel a momentary sense of calm in a world that feels overwhelmingly lonely. The next time they follow you everywhere or begin obsessively licking, gently interrupt the pattern by handing them a textured chew toy or a lick mat, redirecting their anxious energy into a healthy, comforting activity that naturally soothes their nervous system while you remain right by their side. This emotional distress eventually cascades into their vital physiological functions, leading to our seventh glaring red flag, which is a sudden and unexplained loss of appetite. Just as severe depression alters human eating habits, a lonely or heartbroken dog experiences massive hormonal imbalances that completely shut down their gastrointestinal drive. The essential joy chemicals required to stimulate the desire to eat are depleted, leading to a dark emotional state where even their absolute favorite treats turn to ash in their mouths. A dog that stops eating is not just being picky, they are losing their fundamental interest in life itself because there is no one there to share it with. When you notice their food bowl remains untouched, do not just leave it there or try to force-feed them. Sit down on the floor right next to their bowl, speak to them in an encouraging, gentle whisper, and try hand-feeding them a small piece of plain, warm chicken, showing them that you are actively invested in their nourishment and their survival. Without the motivation to eat, they also lose the motivation to move, leading to our eighth sign, which is excessive lethargic sleeping. A dog sleeping excessively all day is not necessarily getting good restorative rest. When a dog feels profoundly abandoned and realizes that no amount of pacing, licking, or crying will bring you back, their spirit breaks and they succumb to a tragic state of learned helplessness. Their nervous system defaults to a primitive survival response that forces the body to shut down and sleep as a way to escape the conscious, painful reality of their emptiness. If you find your dog sleeping far more than usual, uncurled and heavy, gently approach them. Do not wake them with a loud start, but softly stroke their back and invite them to lay their head on your lap, replacing their empty dreams with the physical warmth of your comforting presence. And when the invisible stress becomes entirely unmanageable, it overrides their deepest conditioning, leading to the ninth sign of emotional distress. A perfectly house-trained dog who suddenly begins having accidents indoors is not acting out of spite, anger, or stubbornness. The sheer volume of stress hormones coursing through their body literally disrupts their internal physical control. It is a biological overflow, a physical failure of a body that can no longer contain the absolute magnitude of its own anxiety. Punishing them or rubbing their nose in this moment only deepens their trauma and confirms their deepest fears that they are unsafe. Instead, take a deep breath, clean it up without a word of anger, and recognize that your best friend is crying out for immense comfort and a predictable routine to help restore their shattered internal balance. But loneliness is only one facet of their silent suffering, and as we move deeper, the most urgent and critical language you must learn to translate is the language of hidden physical pain. We are going to count down 14 devastating, quiet cries for help, signs that their physical body is failing them, while they bravely try to mask the damage from the world to protect you and themselves. The 14th sign brings us back to the yawn, but this time It is not just emotional displacement. This is the yawn that happens in the middle of a quiet room, completely disconnected from sleep, boredom, or social pressure. When a dog is experiencing hidden internal tension, a joint that is quietly aching, or an organ that is failing, their body enters a state of high physiological alert. This slow, unprovoked yawn is an automatic reflex attempting to regulate their racing heart rate and force a brief moment of calm into a body that is silently screaming. It is their way of whispering that something is deeply wrong, without breaking the stoic, evolutionary illusion of the healthy pack survivor. When you see this out-of-place yawn, gently call them over. Perform a very slow, soft massage along their spine and legs, and watch carefully for any subtle flinching or tension that might reveal the source of their hidden ache. The 13th sign of hidden pain is a sudden and intense clinginess that appears seemingly out of nowhere. A dog in physical pain knows intimately that their body is compromised, and their ancient evolutionary instincts tell them that a weakened animal is an easy target for unseen predators. To survive this terrifying vulnerability, they adhere themselves to you, the strongest and safest member of their pack, seeking your physical proximity as a literal shield against the invisible threats their compromised body can no longer fight off. They are following you to the bathroom, not for attention, but for protection. Honor this profound instinct by allowing them to stay close without making them feel like a burden, and provide a soft, comfortable bed right beside your feet so they can rest knowing you are standing guard. The 12th sign is etched into the very tension of their face. If you look at your sweet dog and realize their ears are constantly pinned flat against their skull, remaining there for hours or days even when they are resting, you are looking at chronic, unyielding discomfort. This is no longer the fleeting gesture of submissive appeasement we discussed earlier. This is a permanent state of defensive arousal. The pain is so constant and exhausting that their facial nerves remain locked in a tragic grimace of endurance. When you notice this unrelenting tension in their face, realize that their pain threshold has been crossed. Sit with them softly, avoid touching the sensitive areas around their head if they pull away, and understand that this is your cue to gently seek veterinary help, acting as the protective voice they biologically do not have. The 11th sign is a profound alteration in the very rhythm of their life, a subtle shift in their breathing. You may notice a shallow rise and fall of their chest, a quiet wheeze, or unexplained rapid panting when the room is perfectly cool and they have not been running. Science calls this stress-induced analgesia, but what it really means is that your dog is fighting an invisible internal war. The pain signals traveling up their spine are so severe that their body is desperately releasing a flood of adrenaline and natural painkillers just to numb the agony. That unprovoked panting is the exhausting physical cost of fighting their own nervous system, an attempt to cool the heat of that chemical battle. When you hear this heavy, out-of-place breathing, do not ask them to move or perform. Bring them a bowl of fresh water, lay a cool, damp towel gently over their back, and sit quietly with them, offering your steady presence as a comfort while they fight through the invisible heat. The 10th sign is perhaps the most shattering to witness, the phenomenon of dead eyes. You call their name. You walk into the room, and the bright, tracking gaze you have known for years is simply gone. They look right through you, or stare blankly at the wall. This is a profound neurological shutdown. The sheer mental and physical energy required to endure constant physical pain, while simultaneously maintaining that ancient, brave mask of wellness, has entirely depleted their spirit. There is literally no energy left in their beautiful brain to offer you a greeting. The lights are on, but they have retreated to the darkest, safest corner of their own mind to survive the storm. If you see this heartbreaking, empty stare, please do not feel rejected. Sit beside them, cup their cheek softly in your hand, and speak to them in your warmest, lowest voice, letting them know that even if they cannot shine for you right now, you are still there, holding the light. This exhaustion directly causes the 9th sign, a complete withdrawal from joy, where they ignore the favorite toys and games that once defined their very existence. This is not just them mellowing out with advanced age. This is severe, pain-induced heartbreak. The joints are quietly aching, the tissue is damaged, and the joy chemicals in their brain that usually compel them to chase a ball simply cannot overcome the overwhelming volume of the pain screaming from their body. The simple joy of play has been entirely eclipsed by the exhausting, daily necessity of survival. When the toy box remains untouched, do not try to force them into energetic play that will only hurt them more. Instead, adapt to their new reality by engaging their mind without taxing their body, perhaps hiding a few high-value treats in a soft mat right where they are lying, allowing them to feel the pride of a successful hunt without the agony of the chase. The 8th sign is the ultimate physical manifestation of their ancient, wild ancestry. You walk into the room and your dog is missing, eventually found hiding behind a sofa, under a bed, or wedged into a dark, cramped closet. They are not looking for a quiet nap. They are executing a primitive, heartbreaking protocol. In the wild, a severely injured or failing wolf removes itself from the family pack so as not to attract predators to the ones they love, seeking a defensible position in the dark where they cannot be attacked. When your dog hides in the shadows of your home, their ancient biology is telling them that they are simply too weak to survive out in the open. Do not drag them out of the closet by their collar. Bring their softest blanket and a bowl of water directly to their hiding spot, proving to them that they do not have to face the darkness alone, and that your home is a safe place, even when they are feeling incredibly vulnerable. The 7th sign brings us back to obsessive licking, but with a crucial and devastating distinction. If your dog is constantly licking one specific joint, a single wrist, or a localized patch on their flank, they are not just lonely. They are battling deep nerve or muscle pain. The invisible nerve endings beneath that exact spot are firing intense pain signals, and the dog is using the rough, abrasive texture of their tongue to scratch the surface, trying to create a competing sensation. They are desperately trying to confuse the pain pathways in their spinal cord while harvesting a tiny pulse of soothing endorphins. It is a tragic act of localized medical triage. When you see them furiously working over a single joint, do not scold them for licking. Gently place your hand over the area to stop the self-destruction. Offer a very soft, warm massage around the surrounding muscles, and understand that they are explicitly pointing directly to the source of their hidden agony, begging for your help. The 6th sign is a complete and sudden refusal to eat, skipping meals entirely. While emotional stress can cause a mild loss of appetite, a total cessation of eating in a dog is a massive red flag for severe internal distress. Dogs are opportunistic scavengers by nature, and their drive to consume calories is one of their absolute strongest evolutionary traits. When visceral pain in their abdomen, severe nausea, or overwhelming internal inflammation reaches a critical threshold, the biological imperative to heal completely overrides the imperative to eat. Their body is actively shutting down the digestive process to conserve precious energy for a neurological fight for survival. When they turn away from their favorite food, do not force them or act disappointed. Instead, gently warm up a simple, soothing bone broth to entice their senses and sit quietly beside them, offering quiet encouragement without any pressure to perform. This internal battle leads directly to the 5th sign, which involves weight changes that simply do not make sense. You might feel their ribs suddenly protruding beneath your hand, or conversely, notice their belly becoming distended, puffy, and round without any change in their daily diet. Chronic pain is a massive physiological stressor that keeps their internal alarm system in a state of constant, unrelenting activation. The relentless flood of stress hormones into their bloodstream actively reshapes their metabolism, leading to rapid muscle loss or fluid retention. Their physical body is literally reshaping itself under the devastating weight of its own suffering. When you notice this change as you stroke their side, pause and let your hand rest gently on their ribs, validating the physical toll their body is taking. And make the loving choice to seek a veterinarian to help ease their invisible burden. The fourth sign is an obsessive, excessive thirst, where you find yourself filling the water bowl multiple times a day and hear them slurping frantically in the middle of the night. While this can absolutely indicate an internal illness, it is also a recognized symptom of severe, hidden pain. The body is desperately attempting to flush out inflammatory toxins, cool the internal heat generated by constant stress arousal, and engage in a compulsive behavioral loop used to cope with unbearable internal tension. Never restrict their access to water when they do this. Instead, bring the bowl closer to their resting spot so they do not have to endure the pain of walking, and gently wipe their chin, letting them know they are safe to quench their anxious thirst. The third sign is a silent, tragic alteration in how they carry themselves through the world. You might notice a hunched back, a tucked pelvis, or a stiff, awkward gait where they seem to be walking on eggshells. This is their body subconsciously altering its mechanics, tightening the stomach, and shifting its center of gravity to protect a painful internal organ or a degraded spine. The nerve endings in their spinal cord are so heavily sensitized that normal movement feels like tearing tissue, so they lock their body into a rigid cage of muscle to prevent further agony. When you see them walking with this heartbreaking stiffness, do not ask them to jump on the couch or climb the stairs. Gently lift them if they will allow it, or provide a soft ramp, becoming the physical support their failing muscles so desperately need. The second sign occurs in the agonizing moments immediately after you leave the house. You close the door and hear a low, rhythmic whimpering, a soft cry or gentle scratch that you might mistake for simple separation anxiety. But for a dog in chronic pain, the immense effort of maintaining their stoic, evolutionary mask requires your presence as their ultimate source of safety. When you leave, the illusion shatters. The biological anchor is gone, and the absolute panic of being injured, alone, and entirely vulnerable overtakes them. They are crying not just because they miss you, but because without you, they feel entirely defenseless against the pain consuming them from the inside out. Before you leave, wrap them in a blanket that carries your scent, leave a piece of your unwashed clothing in their bed, and whisper a calm promise that you will return, giving them a piece of your armor to hold on to. And finally, the number one most critical and devastating sign of hidden pain is complete non-responsiveness. You call their name, you rattle the leash, you open the food bin, and there is no ear twitch, no tail thump, no slow turning of the head. This is not stubbornness or defiance. This is absolute nervous system shutdown. Their body has endured so much pain for so long that it has determined neither fight nor flight is possible. The dog has collapsed inward, dissociating from their physical body to survive the overwhelming sensory nightmare. They have surrendered to the pain, withdrawing from the world entirely, waiting quietly for the end in the center of your living room. If you are hearing these words and feeling a sudden, crushing weight of guilt, recognizing these signs in the gentle dog sleeping at your feet right now, I need you to stop and take a deep breath. You are not a bad owner. You were simply never taught this silent, intricate, and devastating language. The ancient mandate for dogs to hide their pain is incredibly powerful, deceiving even the most watchful eyes. But now that you possess this knowledge, the dynamic must shift from guilt to immediate, actionable empathy. You have the profound power to intervene in their neurobiology right now, acting as their physical anchor and co-regulator. When you see those dead, staring eyes, or the heavy, unprovoked panting, do not just watch them from across the room feeling helpless. Move to them, sit down on the floor at their level, and consciously slow your own breathing. Dogs are absolute masters of mirroring your energy, and by projecting a state of deep, grounded calm, you are sending a biological signal to their brain that the predators are gone, and that they no longer need to maintain the exhausting mask of survival. Do not offer frantic petting or high-pitched K-talk, which only adds chaotic energy to their overloaded senses. Instead, place your hand completely still and flat against their ribcage, right over their heart, applying a gentle, constant pressure. This deep touch commands their brain to release a wave of pure love chemicals that directly fight the toxic stress flooding their system. Speak to them in a low, slow, resonant voice, telling their body that it is okay to let the GHK down, that you are taking over the watch, and that they are allowed GHK pain safely in your presence. We owe it to these magnificent creatures. GHK, the silence of a dog, was never empty. It was always full of profound communication, waiting for someone to finally learn how GHK. Stay with them, anchor them, and be the voice for the pain they were born to hide. When we finally learn to speak this quiet language, we begin to understand the breathtaking reality of a dog's devotion. For us, a dog is a brilliant, fleeting chapter in the grand story of our lives, woven between our careers, our human friendships, and our long decades on this earth. But to your dog, you are the entire book. You are the warm sun that their incredibly brief, beautiful universe orbits around. Every wag, every anxious pace, and every stoic silence is a testament to an ancient, unspoken vow they made to walk beside you, no matter the cost to their own fragile bodies. Armed with this new understanding, I want you to look at your dog right now. Walk over to them, let go of any small frustrations or past mistakes, and simply rest your hand over their heart. Tell them they are seen. Tell them they are safe. What is the one strange thing your dog does that you now realize is pure, absolute love? Let us know in the comments below, because sharing these moments helps us all become the loving guardians they truly deserve. If you want to keep exploring the profound, soulful bond we share with our animals, simply hit subscribe and join us next time as we uncover the beautiful mysteries hiding in plain sight.